Of all the bosses in Minecraft, the Wither is by far the hardest to defeat. The average player is in for a difficult fight every time, but I'm not your average player. I want to see if I could conquer the Wither in real life. Between its projectiles, speed, maneuverability, and Wither effect, the Wither is an extremely imposing opponent. Although the Ender Dragon is technically considered the final boss of the game, there's a reason why so many people fight it before the Wither, being the difficulty spike. Most of us would rather have access to high-level armor, weaponry, and buffs before taking on that challenge. However, Steve is still fully capable of defeating the Wither with the bare essentials, and I want to see if I could too. Using only the weaponry and tools I have on hand, I designed a gauntlet of challenges to see how I'd fare against the Wither's different battle traits. If I lose in more categories than him, I'm defeated, but if I manage to overcome him in enough areas, I can confidently state that I would stand supreme. The points awarded will be in respect to the battle location, the battle gear, comparison to the Wither's speed, comparison to the Wither's skull speed, comparison to the Wither's height, and milk drinking. Yeah, I know this is a bit of a weird one, but let's get started. The first thing we're doing is finding a location for the battle. As most of us know, the best place to fight the Wither is underground, ideally as close to bedrock as possible. Since I don't exactly have easy access to any caves outside my house, I think that means it's time for a bit of a road trip. We're headed to Stratica, an underground salt museum with extensive caves 650 feet underground. That's about the same as being 200 blocks below the surface, which is perfect. After arriving, we boarded the elevator and headed down into the depths below. While there, I got the chance to ride in a minecart and looked at some different display items, but most importantly, I found the location of our battle. Given that I've got the ideal location picked out for this fight, I'm going to go ahead and award a point in my favor. That may be a bit presumptuous, but if I hadn't found this place, I feel like I wouldn't stand a chance at all. Now that we know where we're fighting, let's evaluate the gear that I'm working with. As I said, I'm only using items I have on hand, so let's open up the closet and see what's in here. Thankfully for me, I've bought a lot of really weird stuff throughout my life, so laying out the weaponry, we've got multiple swords, an axe, and a bow, as well as a decent amount of armor. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's worthwhile here. In terms of matching gear to Minecraft, I think that the sword, axe, and bow are the closest items to an iron sword, iron axe, and bow in game. On top of that, I'm going to say that this Viking helmet counts as an iron one, and although these are technically arm bracers, I could debatably wear them in a similar fashion to iron boots. My primary weapon of choice is either the sword or the axe, so let's run a few trials to see what works best here. The bow may come in handy later, but I'm hoping to avoid its necessity. Given the general destructive nature of the Wither, I booted up a new world to start some testing. With the gear in hand, let's see how things look. Killing the Wither with an iron sword, I found that it took 59 swings and 38 seconds to kill it. Then, killing the Wither with an iron axe, I found that it took 42 swings and 43 seconds. It's worth mentioning that I tried to avoid critting, since I can't exactly do that consistently in real life, but looking at those numbers and considering the Wither's heal effect, I ultimately decided that the sword would be my best bet, since the faster swings ensure more consistent damage. Now that we've got a weapon, we've got to see if I can even get close enough to start damaging the guy. Let's see if I'm fast enough to outrun the Wither. Compared to finding simple stats like the speed of Steve, this was not fun. Believe it or not, it's pretty hard to get a destructive monster to fly in a nice straight line how you want it to. I've had a few people ask me why I don't just look these up, but honestly, I think it's way more fun to do them ourselves. I set up a 20 block track with a villager boxed up on one end, and after letting him loose, it took the Wither exactly 2 seconds to fly across the track. I'll be honest, I'm a bit amazed at how precise that was. Anyways, traveling 20 blocks in 2 seconds means the Wither was moving at a speed of 22.3 miles per hour. Huh. For anyone curious, when I last challenged Steve, I found his average running speed to be 12 miles per hour, and I really struggled to maintain that pace. Regardless of how hopeless this may feel, I'm still going to give it my all. Since the Wither doesn't stay in constant motion, I decided that it would be fair to use the Assault Fitness Treadmill. This allows me to find my max speed, which I'd be using to catch up to the Wither, but it's not like I'd have to maintain that speed for long. Let's see how this thing goes. Well, my max speed was 13.2 miles per hour. Let's be completely real though, I wasn't gonna be hitting 22. The fastest recorded human speed ever is 28 miles per hour, meaning that while a few people on this planet could outrun the Wither, I am not one of them. Let's take the loss and move on to the next challenge. One of the Wither's most dangerous and iconic attacks are his Wither Skulls. As you know, these deadly bullets can fly infinitely in whatever direction they're fired, doing both explosive and withering damage. For the biggest chance of success, I want to know if I could dodge these guys. This part definitely required a little bit more creativity than just tracking the Wither's base speed, so I put the Wither in a bedrock box, with a villager placed 20 blocks away, and tracked one of the missiles fired, finding its speed to be 0.93 seconds. That equals out to 48 miles an hour. Honestly, when writing the script for this challenge, I had no idea how fast these things would be in real life. I really thought that they were a lot slower. I could try to come up with a test for this one, but let's be real. I'm not moving faster than a car. Sure, I could potentially dodge these guys when I'm far away, but up close, I wouldn't stand a chance. I'm just taking the loss here, but I've still got a shot when it comes to the next few challenges, so we're nowhere near giving up. Similar to when I mentioned needing to match the Wither's speed to even hit him, the same logic applies to his height. I'm sure you have all fought the Wither on the surface before and realized why that's such a bad idea. This dude will just randomly float upwards, annoyingly out of reach, and you just have to keep following underneath him and jumping upwards to attack. I need to see if I could match the energy it takes to make that happen. Although I'm intending to fight him in a cave, I still want to know how I'd fare in a worst case scenario. If he broke through to the surface and I couldn't even hit him, I'd be cooked. I decided to set up this test chamber, which he immediately blew up the measuring blocks, so that was awesome, but it still worked out. He's only floating 6 blocks above the ground. I literally thought he floated like 2 blocks. I think the biggest theme behind these videos is how often I misremember information from this game. I've literally been playing Minecraft since I was in 4th grade, which was in 2011, yet somehow I still managed to underestimate my opponents every single time. Well, if he's 6 blocks off the ground, that means he's 19.5 feet high. What the heck? Let's just go ahead and acknowledge how impossible that would be for me to deal with. I'm right here about 6 feet tall, meaning the Wither would be all the way up here. This dude could literally just sit still up there and fire down at me. He's getting the point, but let's just hope it wouldn't even come to fighting him on the surface to begin with. Sure, I may have the same equipment as Steve, but he is borderline a deity with the strength and athletic feats he portrays, so I need to see if I actually have what it takes to match his usage of the weapon. Therefore, we need to see if I can swing the sword as effectively as Steve can. Using the numbers we found earlier, he goes at a pace of roughly 15 swings every 10 seconds, and he keeps things simple with his form, given that all he does is swing over and over again in the same way. So, I shouldn't have too much trouble matching that pace. At least, that's what I'm hoping for. Given that Steve took 38 seconds to beat the Wither, I want to maintain the same swinging rate for at least 1 minute to account for extra time that may occur from mistakes, meaning I should be striking around 90 times. If I can keep that pace with full energy, then I could endure the amount of swinging I need in the fight. Quick pause, because you literally can't make this up. I hit her punching bag 1 time with the sword in its sheath, and it literally crumpled apart. Again, it didn't just break, it legitimately broke in every possible place that it could have. So we had to find an alternative, and after a little trial and error, we finally got a setup that works. Let's go ahead and get this done. While I swing in the background, I'm gonna interject real quick. I realize that this is probably the worst possible way that I could have measured this trait, but hey, I'm a teacher working with a teacher's salary, limited time, and 1,000 subs. Don't get me wrong, I'm super grateful to have that to begin with, but if you want to help me up the stakes in these challenges, liking and subscribing would do so much to support the channel. Anyways, back to, whatever this is. And time! After a minute, I managed to hit the bag nearly 110 times, meaning that I could easily maintain Steve's pace, which is a bit slower. I don't care what anyone says, I'm gonna give myself a point here, otherwise I just have no chance. As a reminder, the equipment I have on hand translates roughly to an iron helmet and iron boots. It's not a perfect match, but we've got to keep this interesting somehow. In game, this only translates to 2 armor bars. That's a little bit rough, but it's still better than nothing. Putting myself in a cage with the monster himself, I was able to last around 12 seconds before dying. However, I feel like this trial was a little bit unfair, given that I lost half my health in the initial blast. In real life, I'd be farther away at the start, so let's try this one more time with distance. And that time, we lasted 16 seconds. Unfortunately, and not super shockingly, the 2 worst pieces of iron armor probably won't qualify as adequate for this fight. Maybe in the future I could gear myself up a bit better, but for now, that's another point to the Wither, which means I've officially lost. However, we're still going to go into this final challenge with full force because I will not go down in history as a sore loser. I will fight till the bitter end. It's time to drink some milk. Finally, we're at the last challenge, and objectively, probably the funniest. During this fight, I'll likely find myself with the Wither effect. If that's the case, there's only one cure that can bring me back from the brink of death. Milk. For some reason. Steve himself can down a bucket of milk in 2.06 seconds, and I need to know if I can do the same to survive. Now, let's be real, I know he has a bucket of milk, but the thing is basically drinking like a cup, so that's what I'll be doing. Let's see if I have what it takes to immediately negate these effects. And we ended with a time of 6.46 seconds. If I was within double of Steve's time, I may have given the point to myself, but this was over 3 times as much. Just plain embarrassing. Let's give one more point to the Wither and look at the scores as a whole. While I can't say that I'm too surprised that I lost, I'm definitely disappointed that this wasn't any closer. If I had won one other category, a 3-4 score would have looked way better than a 2-5. Regardless, this was still super fun. For those of you wondering why I even do these challenges, knowing the odds of me winning are pretty slim, they're genuinely just nice experiences to push myself, and it's fun to learn new information about Minecraft, a game that I love. Thank you all for helping me to hit 1,000 subscribers, and seeing that number is still a bit hard for my brain to comprehend. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in a couple of weeks.